Welcome to Miyconst Hardware. One of the most frequent questions I get from my subscribers is whether to go with AMD AM4 platform or the good old LGA 2011 version 3 with the Chinese X99 motherboard. Usually the question sounds like, I have this amount of money and this is enough for me to buy AM4 motherboard, Ryzen 5 2600 and 16 gigs of memory. Or I can buy a Chinese X99 motherboard, E5-2690V4, maybe E5-2690 or 97V3 with 32 gigs of memory. So which one is better? The short answer to this question would be like this. If you plan to upgrade your computer within the next few months, maybe half a year, then AMD AM4 is surely a better option. If you install something like Ryzen 5 5600 or maybe Ryzen 7 5700, then your performance will be way much better than the old X99 can offer. On the other hand, if you plan to use your computer as is for a year or more, then the old X99 is probably gonna serve you better. Now, if you're not satisfied with this simple answer and you want to go into the details, then this video is right for you. Because today I'm going to show you test results of a Xeon E5-2697 V3 compared to 4 Ryzen 5 CPUs. Ryzen 5 1600, 2600, 3600 and 5600. Also for the curious ones, I have tested E5-2697 V3 twice. First time with hyperthreading enabled and the other time with hyperthreading disabled. Every now and then someone would write me a comment that I should have disabled hyperthreading and then Xeon's performance would be 10, 15, 20% better, which is of course nonsense, but now you have the test numbers and you can decide for yourself what to buy, how much to pay, and all depends on the price and availability in your region. Of course, if you have good second-hand market and good second-hand options, then the old X99 makes no sense, but it's not available for everyone. So let's go into the test results. First, let's quickly go through the test specification or hardware I used to perform these tests. Starting with LGA 2011 3 platform, here I have E5-2697 V3 CPU running on Qi the X99H9S motherboard with 32GB DDR4 2133 CL12 memory. I have 4 sticks 8GB each, so we have quad memory channel support. Windows 11 Pro, resizable bar enabled, Turbo Boost unlock applied, Spectre and Meltdown patches disabled. AMD AM4 platform I tested using the cheapest Asus B450M A2 motherboard. For memory I have the same 32 gigs, but I have 2 sticks 16GB each, Corsair DDR4 3600 CL18. Unfortunately, Ryzen 5 1600 was tested with the DDR4 3400 because it was not stable at DDR4 3600. Other than that, we also have Windows 11 Pro and resizable bar was enabled as well. Since Xeon E5 is tested with Turbo Boost unlock applied, I thought it would be fair to at least enable Precision Boost Overdrive, since Ryzen 5 CPUs can be manually overclocked and tweaked for slightly better performance. All the CPUs were tested with my AMD RX 7900 XTS graphics card, so in all the tests we will be severely CPU bottlenecked, and with this GPU I will be able to crank up visual settings almost to the maximum in the games where it's relevant. The test results, though, I'm going to start with a couple of synthetic benchmarks, so you roughly understand what raw power these CPUs give in terms of synthetic performance. First one is Geekbench 6. E5-2697 V3 has 14 cores running at almost 3.5 GHz when Turbo Boost unlock applied, so it is expected to comfortably beat older Ryzen CPUs with just 6 cores, such as Ryzen 5 1600, 2600 and even 3600. Ryzen 5 5600 is a whole new story though. With just 6 cores, it almost matches Xeon's multi-core score and almost doubles its single-core score. Cinebench R23 is a slightly different test, and unlike Geekbench, Cinebench is very good at fully utilizing many cores and hyperthreading. In this test, E5-2697 V3 with hyperthreading enabled is noticeably faster than Ryzen 5 5600. When comparing multi-core scores, Xeon loses to Ryzen without hyperthreading though. Older Ryzen CPUs can't match multi-score of Xeon E5. Power consumption, well, during single-core test, Ryzen CPUs are 2 to 3 times more efficient than the old Xeon, but with all cores loaded, efficiency between E5-2697 v3 and Ryzen 5 16-2600 is about the same. Ryzen 5 3600 and 5600 are much newer and noticeably more efficient in this test. Gaming benchmarks, I'm going to start with the latest release, Arc Riders. Here I test Epic preset with ray tracing manually set to high, as Epic ray tracing is a bit too much for RX 7900 XTX even at 1080p. The game is not possible to test accurately because it's a multiplayer title with random activities. The game does not have a built-in benchmark and locks out certain maps for different events. Thus, please take these results as a general reference rather than an accurate FPS number. Overall, Arc Riders is well optimized for multi-core CPUs. Xeon E5-2697 v3 is almost twice as fast as Ryzen 5 1600. Even though Ryzen has slightly better IPC, Xeon delivers 110 FPS on average, while Ryzen is only good for 67 FPS. Ryzen 5 2600 is marginally better, it's able to render 72 FPS, which is still far behind E5 2697 v3. Ryzen 5 3600 goes one step further and improves the performance to about 84 FPS on average, and finally, Ryzen 5 5600 delivers about 102 FPS, which is on par with the Xeon's performance. It's worth noting that in all cases, the GPU was heavily underutilized, so these FPS numbers are a maximum of what you can expect from these CPUs. Reducing visual quality or enabling FSR won't give you extra FPS. The next tested game is also released recently. It is Battlefield 6 Redsec or Battlefield 6 Battle Royale. Here I test medium graphical preset as it gives a good balance between performance, visual quality and clarity. Just like Arc Riders, Battlefield is an online shooter without a built-in benchmark, so yeah, take this number as a rough estimation of the performance. It is not a cut-and-stone number that you must or will get with these CPUs. Performance numbers here are also very similar to Arc Riders. Xeon E5-2697 v3 delivers about 70-120 FPS, it is 1% lows and averages, which is again almost double as fast as what Ryzen 5 1600 can deliver, it is 43-76 FPS. Ryzen 5 2600 is a tiny bit better, it scores 47-82 FPS, Ryzen 5 3600 goes further and reaches 5600 FPS, and Ryzen 5 5600 again catches but fails to beat Xeon E5-2697 v3. It delivers 66-119 FPS. During the test, Ryzen 5 5600 utilization stays close to 90%, while Xeon's utilization is around 60%, which means that Xeon has more headroom for some sort of background activities. The next game I tested is another very popular title, Counter-Strike 2. Even though after countless test runs I occasionally get to top 3 results in CS deathmatches, I still dislike the game for its toxic community and amount of disgusting Russians. Thus, I hope you will appreciate my effort testing it. Here I test a low graphical preset and I manually disabled AMD FSR, so the game is rendered at a native 1080p. Just like the other shooters, Counter-Strike does not have a built-in benchmark, so I had to play several rounds on the same map to get somehow accurate numbers. We are almost in 2026, but CS still uses DirectX 11 and fails to properly utilize multiple CPU cores. Xeon E5-2697 v3 with its 87-170 FPS is not bad at all, but it's also not great if you ask Counter-Strike fans. Ryzen 5 1600 can't deliver even that, it's ceiling at 75-124 FPS. Ryzen 5 2600 is slightly better, it renders 83-139 FPS. Ryzen 5 3600 is finally getting to use its IPC advantage over Xeon E5. This time 3600 beats E5 with 109-193 FPS, while Ryzen 5 5600 is on a completely new level. It delivers 138-279 FPS, which is close to double of the Xeon's result. To no one's surprise, RX 7900 XTX chills at maximum 60% utilization even with the Ryzen 5 5600. F1 2023 is a racing simulator with pretty decent optimization. With high graphical preset, RX 7900 XTX is not choked with ray tracing, and the Xeon E5-2697 V3 delivers very respectable performance at 220-293 FPS. Ryzen 5 1600 is only good for 143-189 FPS, which is more than 100 FPS slower than the Xeon E5. Ryzen 5 2600 is about the same, just a few FPS faster, 148-199 FPS. Ryzen 5 3600 is significantly faster than 2600 but still slower than E5-2697 V3. It scores 192-245 FPS. Finally, Ryzen 5 5600 stretches its IPC advantage and comfortably beats Xeon E5 with 263-377 FPS. Coral Island is a rather cozy farming simulator with simple graphics and bad optimization. Even with epic graphical preset, the GPU is not saturated. E5-2697 V3 is only good for 50-95 FPS. Slightly worse results can be seen with Ryzen 5 1600, 4680 FPS, and Ryzen 5 2600, 5085 FPS. Ryzen 5 3600 is slightly ahead of the Xeon, it renders 6307 FPS, and Ryzen 5 5600 with its stronger IPC gives us 6732 FPS. Overall, all CPUs deliver playable experience, and the Xeon E5-2697 V3 is almost as good as Ryzen 5 3600. Cyberpunk 2077 is a pretty heavy game, heavy on CPU and GPU. My RX 7900 XTX is almost saturated with high graphical preset even at 1080p. Still, CPU performance is just as important. Xeon E5-2697 V3 utilization stays around 50%, which means all the real CPU cores not hyperthreading are busy rendering something, and the result is 106-129 FPS. Interestingly enough, Cyberpunk is the only game where disabling hyperthreading noticeably impacts the performance. Without hyperthreading, Xeon E5 renders 113-143 FPS. Ryzen 5 1600 utilization reaches 75%, and the CPU is holding off the GPU, which results in 70-94 FPS. Ryzen 5 2600 is yet again marginally faster than 1600, it renders 7300 FPS. Ryzen 5 3600 moves things further and delivers 92-123 FPS, but Ryzen 5 5600 is needed to beat the Xeon. It is able to score 108-158 FPS. Additionally, I can note that the built-in benchmark occasionally loads Ryzen 5 5600 over 80%, which means any background task will negatively impact the performance. The last tested game is also a 2025 release, it is Monster Hunter World. Just like Cyberpunk, it is also very demanding, but unlike Cyberpunk, it has pathetic optimization. I tested high preset with FSR manually disabled. E5-2697 V3 is good for 4880 FPS, which is again significantly faster than Ryzen 5 1600. The oldest Ryzen is only capable of 3054 FPS, and Ryzen 2600 isn't much better, it yields only 3156 FPS. Ryzen 5 3600 improves their results to 3967 FPS, but it's not good enough to catch up with the Xeon. For that you would need Ryzen 5 5600, that is just a frame slower than the Xeon, it renders 4778 FPS. Now let's combine all these 7 results together. On average, in these 7 tested games, E5-2697 V3 delivers about 90-140 FPS. Disabling hyperthreading didn't do much, and with the tested shooters it's very hard to get precise numbers, so a few FPS better results without hyperthreading do not prove anything, it can just be a testing error. Ryzen 5 1600 and 2600, much to my surprise, are significantly slower than the Xeon E5. Both scored about 6500 FPS. Ryzen 5 3600 is noticeably faster than the older cousins, but across these 7 games it could not catch up with the Xeon E5. On average, it delivers 8631 FPS. Ryzen 5 5600 is a much newer CPU with much stronger IPC, so even with just 6 cores against a 14-core Xeon, it wins. The average score across the tested games is 107-178 FPS. The difference is surely noticeable, but I expected a much larger gap. The modern games with optimization for multi-core CPUs made the Xeon E5-2697 v3 to be much more competitive than I expected. FPS numbers are covered. Now let's take a look at the power consumption. Here I report power consumption from the wall, measured by an external watt meter, because the software readings for the CPU or GPU power consumption might be inaccurate. E5-2697 v3 with Turbo Boost Unlock is pretty competitive against 6-core AMD AM4 Ryzens, but it comes at a cost. The power consumption can reach up to 555 watts in my configuration. Still, it's much more important to compare how much FPS we get per watt rather than how much watts it sucks from the wall. And guess what? In these tested games, E5-2697 v3, even with the Turbo Boost Unlock, isn't that bad. On average, it delivers about 0.36 FPS per watt of consumed electricity, which is just a tiny bit worse than Ryzen 5 16 and 2600. Those deliver about 0.37 FPS per watt. Ryzen 5 3600 is significantly better, it delivers about 0.48 FPS per watt, and Ryzen 5 5600 is even better, it provides about 0.55 FPS per watt. There are several important factors to consider when you evaluate these results. I enabled Precision Boost Overdrive with all the tested Ryzen CPUs, and it is known to throw away Ryzen's efficiency for rather modest FPS gains. Still, I believe it is fair to test with PBO enabled, since Xeon E5 was tested with Turbo Boost Unlock. Second point is that AMD RX 7900 XTX is more efficient at lower clocks, so the less GPU is loaded, the more efficient it is. And the third last point is that in many, if not all games, the most power is consumed by the GPU, so the efficiency of the Ryzen CPU compared to the Xeon CPU is not as relevant when we have the same GPU running for both systems. One last thing that I would like to mention is the idle power consumption. While AMD AM4 systems are happy to idle at about 35-45 watts from the wall, Xeon E5 configuration idles at about 55-65 watts, so we get about 15-20 watts extra with the old Xeon E5 CPU. If it is significant and impactful for you, it's totally up to you to decide. It depends on how much your PC idles, how much electricity costs for you, and what house temperature you have or you want to have. The final conclusion I leave up to you. My task is to deliver you the test results, the FPS numbers, the watts consumed. But after all, it is you who know how much it is gonna cost you to buy this or that configuration. Only you know what games you play and how much time you spend, how much your PC is working, how much your PC is idling, and what options you have on the second-hand market. If you ask me, then much to my surprise, by the end of 2025, the good old LGA 2011 version 3 is still alive and thriving. Of course, it is showing its age and it is not perfect for anything more than a budget gaming computer, but it still has a use case, and the use case is pretty valid. With the latest edition of the Chinese X99 motherboard with a secure boot and TPM 2.0 support, you can also have Windows 11 fully compatible, and all your games such as Valorant, League of Legends, Battlefield that require these features will work just fine. So if you're buying a Chinese X99 motherboard from AliExpress, make sure that you are getting one with the TPM 2.0 support. With that, I have to say thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I hope it was interesting and somehow useful. Bye for now.